Welcome back to the Commission Podcast. I'm here with a live audience at Revive 2024. 20 years, a classic in the making. I don't know how many raise of hands that have listened to it online before. Nice one. Cool. Maybe after this one you will listen to it, or maybe you won't. We'll find out. But thanks for all joining us. Basically, the Commission Podcast and a lot of Commission media exists to tell the stories that are going on in the network. So it's easy to get stuck in our corners of London. Excited about our churches, but it's really encouraging to find out what's going on across the network, and especially because Commission is about planting churches, finding out about how gospel ministry has gone into these new areas to reach the lost. Because we really believe that getting gospel preaching churches into areas and subsequently the evangelism that comes out of that church can really affect change in that area for the gospel. Well, I'm here with Scott Fury from St. Augustine's Wembley Park. And two people from his congregation, one an intern, one a regular punter, Dietrich and Josephine. Excited to have you guys. And so just introduce yourselves, and I guess really just sort of a brief synopsis of maybe how running theme is we've been seeing how people have come to the Lord. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear your guys' stories. So Scott.
I'm Scott. I'm married to Sharon. We've got two boys who are munching on their tea somewhere. I'm the vicar of St. Augustine's. Before that I was at CCM. Christchurch Mayfair for 5 years as a student minister. Before that, I was training, and before that, I was at a church in Cambridge as the youth worker and administrator. So I actually went straight from a university into sort of ministry roles. But I became a Christian almost 25 years ago through the ministry of a youth group at my local church. We went away to a festival for the summer, and I sort of made a profession of faith there almost 25 years ago.
Amazing.
Hello, I'm Dietrich. I'm a Canadian, but we hopped around quite a lot growing up as a family. Thankfully, a Christian family, and so they told me about Jesus, but it was really come to university that my faith became active again after quite a while without it. And so, I was at CCM under Scott as a student there, and so went to CCM for kind of 5 years, and then graduated and decided to join the church plants and become an intern there. I was thinking about it for CCM, but decided to take it at St. Augustine's instead.
Cool. And I'm Josephine. I'm currently a student. I'm not an intern. I'm just a Wembley Park member. And I became a Christian when I was around 14, 15. Grew up knowing a lot about the Bible and going to church, but just thought it was something external, something that didn't impact my life. And it was only around 14, 15 when I was really struck by God's grace, and God really showed that my faith is something that changes how you live, and Jesus' death and resurrection changes the relationship you have with God, and that really transformed me. And from then, it's been a journey. I was in Sydney when this happened, and the uni ministry at Sydney focused a lot on less reached and less resourced ministry, and I think God used that a lot. And I was fortunate to be a part of a less resourced church when I was in Sydney as well. And that was a very powerful experience in seeing God at work and how God can be using less resourced churches for his glory. And then when I moved to the UK and moved to London, I was looking for a similar-esque church, a less resourced church or in a less reached area. And then St. Augustine's popped into existence, I guess.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys for sharing the story. So Scott, St. Augustine's Wembley Park, CCM has had quite a good history of being active in church planting. Can you run us through that process of how that sort of thought process kicked off?
Yeah, so CCM had been planning for a while to maybe do something sort of northwest, up the Jubilee line is what we kept sort of thinking, but just partly because they had planted in other directions before, and it was the sort of next direction to go. So it sort of started as no more than that, and then trying to work out where in that part of London to sort of land and try something. The sort of long story short, the various conversations with different church organisations. So we are an Anglican church, so chats with the Diocese of London and trying to work out where there were churches that were in need of a bit of a revitalisation. So churches that were struggling and could do with a boost. One of the options, there were various options on the table. One of the options was St. Augustine's in Wembley Park. And as we thought about that and prayed about that, actually it seemed like a really good opportunity. around the stadium, obviously, if you heard of Wembley, you know the stadium. All around the stadium, there's been massive redevelopment, up to 10,000 flats, and they're still building. There's new ones nearly every month being built. Huge numbers of people moved into the area, predominantly in the sort of 20s and 30s demographic. So obviously, coming from Christchurch Mayfair, we were planting mainly out of the evening congregation. So that sort of 20s and 30s demographic, it seemed like a good fit in terms of how we could reach an area with the team that we had. And the church family at St Augustine's, there was a sort of remnant of 20 before we went in, and they were keen to try something new. It was a church that didn't have a history of Bible teaching. It was much more Anglo-Catholic traditionally, but willing to try something new, willing to do things a bit differently to they had done previously. And so I was appointed as the vicar there on the understanding that we would bring a team, launch a new service alongside the existing service.
Fresh bodies and new people excited for serving the Lord. How have you found the existing congregation respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I certainly was a bit quite nervous of that dynamic. Lots that would change for them as well as for us. It was new for everyone involved. Actually, we've been really encouraged. We started. I became the vicar last July. We launched the new service in September. So we've been going less than a year, but we've been massively encouraged at how we've been welcomed in by the existing congregation. How actually there is now a lovely sort of crossover. We're still working hard to pull the two groups together so that we feel like one church, but I think increasingly we do. Lots of that is relational, people getting to know one another and actually enjoying spending time with one another. For the existing congregation, the biggest win really has been the relaunch of the Sunday school. So they had a proud history of sort of having this thriving Sunday school. It completely collapsed over COVID and various things over the years, so that there was no Sunday school, there were no children. So we went along with our two, and there was one other family that had just started coming, and we restarted the Sunday school, which is, well, Josephine will say more about that later, but has grown since. And that's been a massive win, even as other things have changed and been done differently. Actually, for the morning congregation to feel like there's something that they feel really, really passionate about that is going well and is being invested in. So we've been thrilled at how that's happened.
That's really encouraging. So looking after sort of the family culture, and focusing on taking care of the kids, taking care of the families, and that has a big impact. Yeah. Amazing. Great. On to you guys. So why get involved in a brand new church plant? I mean, it's exciting, but I mean it's also challenging, and there's no hiding in the background. You got to help out.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking about doing a ministry internship anyways, and so it was a choice of the church that I was already at or a new church. And I guess in the secular world, I would have been doing startup stuff in startup technology. And so I liked a smaller organization and thought that would be interesting and kind of a generalist rather than a specialist for a ministry area, having to do lots of different things. But also, over the years, I've done a lot of stuff with kind of Muslim evangelism. And the community that we're in is about a third Muslim, a third Hindu, and a third nominal Christian. And so there's quite a lot of need for that, to be able to engage with Muslims about the gospel and about the Quran and all of their thoughts. So it all just kind of came together quite nicely.
Amazing. Josephine?
Yeah, kind of touched on it earlier, but I had in Sydney, there was some formative ministry about less resourced churches, and experience in that less resourced church made me want to become part of a similar church here. But yeah, I mean, the gospel and Jesus is the main reason, and wanting to support churches that give the opportunity for people who otherwise might not have heard the gospel or might not step foot into a church with good gospel teaching. That's something I'm really keen to support. And also knowing that God can work through us weak humans. Doesn't have to be a big flashy thing.
Amen.
But yeah, that built a lot of confidence in going out and taking that risk for Jesus, knowing that God will work through it.
Amazing. That's really helpful. So I think maybe you touched a bit on this, Scott. I want to backtrack just a bit. Can you give us kind of like a rundown of Wembley? I mean, many people will know what Wembley's about, but for listeners listening to this, give us kind of the rundown. Diedrich, you gave us a bit of the demographics there. Kind of who is who is Wembley Park? Who are the people there? And then kind of a tag on to the end of that. What are some of the outreach ministries that you guys are doing? I'm happy for any of you guys to answer that. So some of the outreach ministries, maybe digging into a bit of the Muslim evangelism, what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, there really are two sides to Wembley Park, or two bits of it. There is the bit that if you live in other parts of London, you know it for, maybe you're going to a concert at the arena, maybe into Taylor Swift, you're going to a football match. There's the sort of Wembley Park stadium, Wembley Stadium, and the new development around it, all fairly new, all fairly shiny. It really is its own little bubble. Step outside of that, you sort of cross the road, and you're into a fairly standard northwest London suburb. So enormous diversity. So Brent Borough, which Wembley is really the heart of, is officially the most diverse borough in the country. So 56% of the population born outside the UK. So and from an extraordinary range of places. So lots of people of South Asian descent, Afro-Caribbean, Eastern European. So extraordinary diversity. And actually, it's not one of the more well-off parts of London. So quite a lot of social issues. People really struggling with cost of living and trying to live in London and eke out an existence. So there are really those two bits. The church is sort of in the suburban part, in the sort of more ordinary part, but we are doing a lot of work there, but also with an eye to reach the 20s and 30s sort of demographic. Probably people living around the stadium who commute in to work, down the Metropolitan line. Yeah, so we're trying to reach both groups. In part, the two services that we've got at the minute are trying to do that. So the more traditional service may be geared more towards the parish, the suburban bit, and our 4 p.m. contemporary service trying to reach those 20s and 30s. I'll let these guys talk a little bit more about how we're trying to do that.
So we do a lot of door knocking in our parish because with the demographics, they're kind of unlikely to just kind of wander into the church building. We do have to go to them. And so we have a team doing door knocking. And that was difficult to start in some ways because the people that brought over hadn't done it all that much before. But we've had lots of good conversations. Primarily with the Muslim and Hindu groups who do really like talking about faith a lot of the time. Not always liking about Jesus, but they like talking about it.
It's an inroad. It's an inroad into the conversation and makes it a little bit less door slammy.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, that's really encouraging. I mean, let's dig into that. So we've talked a bit about the structure. We talked a bit about why plant into Wembley, the people there. I think the big thing that's always really encouraging for me is hearing the stories of God's goodness. Sometimes hearing the stories of challenge, heartache, and how God's walked with you as a team through those sorts of things. It's always difficult. Burnout is a thing, loss. We've heard tons of stories on the Commission podcast, but the thread that runs through them all is God's been really good through it, and His plan is working its way, and His hand is moving. So, I'm curious to hear some of the encouraging stories, some of the challenges even as well. So, whoever wants to kick that off.
Yeah, well, we had our first baptism, I guess, 2 weeks ago, first adult baptism. So it was a guy named Goran who wandered into our church with a lady who was seen at the time, and they seemed to not like it at all. And they sat at the back and left immediately and didn't want to talk with anyone. But for whatever reason, he came back, and he kept coming back, and eventually joined one of the small groups that we had that was more aimed at new people, new or nominal Christians. Then got more stuck in with coming to a small group, another one that we have, and we did one-to-one with him. And so he decided to commit publicly to his Christian faith and was baptized a couple of weeks ago, which was, very exciting. It was great to see.
Amazing. So, just to dig into that bit, have you had any encouraging stories in the door knocking? I know for a lot of people, the idea of door knocking is quite scary. Some of the encouraging conversations we saw in the film of the need, people are interested in talking about it at least, whether they agree with you or not. So maybe there's some encouragements there and stories of you interacting with people there in Wembley.
Yeah, we talk with a lot of people, and certainly, more than you'd expect actually do want to speak about faith in some sort, in some way. One of the guys I knocked on his door, and it was an older Muslim guy. And so he was very hostile. He was very kind of fixed in a traditional Islamic argument path, I guess, of wanting to defend the Quran and stuff. And so then his younger son, who was kind of vaguely my age, came to the door. And so I think the dad was like trying to get him involved to be like, oh yeah, you defend your faith as well, like show how it goes. And so they invited me inside, and I joined them, and then the dad just kind of left. So he went to some other room, I guess, to leave his son to defend the faith. But he didn't do it all that well. So we were chatting quite a lot. So we got to, justification by faith, which is a sticking point for a lot of Muslims. And he changed his mind on the fact that the Bible that we were holding in front of us, the Gospel of John, actually did say that Jesus was God. So it's not just something that we're projecting onto the Gospels, but it's something that's actually there, is what Jesus was claiming. So kind of two big areas that he changed his mind on. And so we swapped details, and we haven't had contact. He's responded, but not wanting to continue any further. So when we do the next kind of round of door knocking in that area, I'll follow up with him a bit better.
Amazing. Well, praise God for those opportunities. Well done, guys. Josephine, can you tell us a bit about coming back to the Sunday school, kind of what that's been like?
Yes, it's been a joy. It's been a massive answer to prayer. I think that's been the coolest thing to see. Before we planted, we were doing a lot of prayer meetings at CCM, and one prayer was that we would have kids come, families come, at least one, we started Sunday school. And praising God, we have more than just Scott's kids. We had, it was been a long process. Like when we started Sunday school, it was just Scott's 2 kids, or Scott and Sharon's 2 kids. But in maybe the last 2 months, we suddenly spiked up to like 20. And it literally went from like 2 and 4 and then 4, and then was steady for quite a while. And then it just, God was really, really kind and just suddenly bringing along a whole bunch of kids. And they're from, the kids are from different age ranges, demographics, cultural backgrounds. So that's also been a joy and so cool to see that vision of God's kingdom being, from every tribe, nation, tongue, language coming together, and seeing that in little kids. But it comes with its challenges. The age range is from like 3 till 14. In one Sunday school, and the numbers do sometimes fluctuate a bit. So like we had 19 one week and then 2 the next week, and it's hard to predict what a Sunday is going to look like, how chaotic it might be. Depending on the age ranges, it can change the energy levels as well. So it's been a challenge, but also such an encouragement to see a bit of God's kingdom in Sunday school, and that the kids just keep on coming back. And as Scott mentioned, it's such an encouragement for the morning congregation as a whole to see the Sunday school like up and running and growing again. So it's been a joy. It's tiring some weeks, but it's been a real encouragement to see how God's answered that prayer.
Well, that's so good. Well, thank you guys for sharing those stories. It's always really encouraging. Scott, please.
Just one more. On the theme of kids, there's a local primary school where our boys go just across the road from the church, and we're increasingly getting opportunities to go in there. So because of the diversity of the area, multi-faith, they take their multi-faith bit quite seriously. So it's not a sort of secular British school in any sense. They do actually take their RE lessons quite seriously. So I had the opportunity the other day we welcomed in the year 3s, so 120 year 3 kids who their teacher asked for a session on what do Christians believe happens after you die, heaven, hell, and judgment day.
Wow.
So their topic, their choice, and they said just have 2 hours with these 120 kids, teach them about that.
That's surprising. Wow. Praise God for that.
Which are some of the unusual. You don't sort of go in expecting that. You think maybe we'll get a little assembly where we'll be able to talk about Jesus, like right at the end of it.
Get to hold a picture of them up.
Yeah, but
that's it.
It was opportunities like that, which come from being in a genuinely multi-faith area and a school that takes that seriously.
Amazing. How many people would you say you got coming along to a weekly service right now?
Yeah, across the 2 services, we're probably about between 90 and 100. Some of those are people coming twice, but that's our sort of current Sunday attendance.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, before I open up for questions, how can we be praying? I mean, that's one of the big reasons we wrap up the way we do. How can you get involved in a local church? Well, you can go along. You can help out with the church. There's always the financial aspect, but one of the things, the least I can do is pray. We say that sometimes, and I think it's one of the best things we can do. So what are some of the ways we can be praying for your guys' ministry?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think it is one of the big encouragements of being part of a network like Commission. You know, we talked about this new church venture at Revive last year, and actually it's been lovely to come back and sort of reflect on the past year, and actually lots of people have been praying, and yeah, we're super grateful for that. I think you could pray that we would make the most of the mission opportunities that are there. It feels like there are so many opportunities, there's so much need, there's so many different groups and different people who need the gospel. Trying to work out where to focus energy and how to, you know, how to make the most of the opportunities that we've got with the small team that we are. So I think pray for wisdom, and pray for God to be at work through the very ordinary things that we're doing. You know, church on a Sunday when we open up the doors and we invite people in, the door knocking, all those things that actually the Lord would work to be raising up people in Wembley Park to keep reaching people in Wembley Park. That'd be great.
Amazing. Yeah, we can. For you guys.
Yeah, the area that I'm involved with, door knocking, you can pray that we'll follow up with people well. Because when you're going to people to their doors, it's easy to have a first conversation, but to go from you going to them at their house to then them coming to you or to the church or to meet up somewhere else is quite a big step. And so we haven't really found a great way to do that yet. So we'll door knock again and chat with the people that we had good conversations with previously. But yeah, so thinking about what type of Muslim-focused courses or can do specific events or something that we could do to try to encourage people in.
Amazing. Josephine.
And with Sunday school, with the fluctuating numbers, I guess wisdom in knowing how to lead that well and how to cater to the different age ranges and the learning styles, and that's probably the main thing.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys for that. Normally in this section we would say let's pause your podcast if you can, wherever you're driving or listening or working out or whatever it is, and just pray for a bit, and we'll come back again. But because it's a live episode, I'll pause the recording, and if you guys would like to pray, could you turn to a neighbor if you feel comfortable and just pray for a couple minutes for some of the things that they've been talking about? Is that all right? Nice one. Well, why don't you do that for just a few minutes? All right, guys. I want to open up things for questions. Thank you guys for praying, and thank you guys for coming again. I want to open it up for questions if you have any. We got a little mic here. We don't have a roving mic because I brought all mic gear and I don't have any wireless mics. But if you want to ask a question, you just either shout it out or feel free to grab a mic. If you want to ask the team anything or curious about, do you want to yell it or come up? Yeah, why don't you? Nice one.
Hi there. You talked about that is a kind of parish revitalisation, and you kind of had 20 people who were there before who had quite a different expectation probably on what worship looks like and what you were doing as a vicar and those kinds of things. What was your approach to that, and have you seen any examples of real kind of renewal of faith in those people, or any great stories from that as well?
Thank you. It's a really helpful question. Yeah, our approach was, so we stuck with they previously had a morning service, but we kept that at the same time, and a similar sort of style. So it is a more formal, traditional Anglican service with, you know, some set prayers and that style. They sing mostly to the organ, and I think I was reflecting on that this weekend, that actually that I preached the same sermon at both services, and I think it's been a real test to see, do I actually believe that it is God's word that shapes and changes people's hearts, not a sort of not a style or a personal preference of the sorts of songs that I like to sing. Obviously we want to sing songs that are good and, you know, biblical and full of truth, but everything around that I want to be fairly flexible with, just because it's not what I personally enjoy and find encouraging, but the word is at the heart of it, and actually it's the Bible teaching that is the most shared aspect of the two services. So everything else, things have changed slowly. There were some things we took out straight away. There were some things we sort of worked with, but I think to give space for that style with a gospel heart, I think that's certainly been my approach. And I think I've been, I sort of went in thinking everyone's going to hate everything about, having some Bible teaching and everything else that we're trying to do. And actually I've been hugely encouraged of both the existing congregation receiving that and being really actually quite appreciative of that. I want to be careful how I say it, but some people are at churches that don't teach the Bible slightly by accident. It's not necessarily that that's what they want, but for various reasons they just go to their local church, and whatever they get is what they get. And when they then get a bit of Bible again, they really appreciate that, and they understand a little bit more that that's what they weren't getting before. So I think lots of examples of people. I had one lady who sings in the choir who sort of a few weeks in, we were preaching through Mark's Gospel, said, I'm super grateful that you give us the whole word, that we're not just getting a little piece of it. But I was just preaching through Mark's Gospel. I wasn't giving them all the Bible at once. But that sense of an understanding that the word was being preached. Yeah, lots of people from different parts of the world, where actually the Anglican thing comes with gospel preaching. We don't, in this country, we don't really have a category for that. A gospel preaching Anglican church is sort of an oddity, not the mainstream. Actually, if you're from Nigeria or, actually the Anglican churches are preaching the gospel quite clearly with a bit of Anglican stuff around it. And actually people have warmed up to that. Sorry, that was a rambly answer to a good question.
Anybody else? Yeah. Grab that.
Obviously you've been kind of going for about nearly a year now. I was just wondering, where do you sort of see the biggest serving needs from people in the congregation in the church? Like, what are the kind of things that you're looking to grow, or or wanting people to kind of get involved, but just kind of interested in the kind of like the challenges from a congregational level? And
I think almost a year in, I'm very aware that the core team, so the grafting team, and then some people that joined beyond that, carry quite a lot of the burden of serving. So there was the existing congregation who actually were holding quite a lot of the day-to-day running of the church, and then the core team, the graft team, now running quite a lot of the ministries, the Sunday school, the music. I think coming to a year and aware that people have served hard, and you start simple, but you add extra things as you go. We'll just add this little extra thing and we'll do that, and you end up asking the same people to do those roles. So very conscious of the need to be training up new leaders. So we do have a pool of people who are sort of new to the church and are I think ready to be trained. So we're hoping in the autumn to run a leadership training course to try and raise people up to fill some of those expanding ministries that need more Sunday school leaders, but also to spread the load a little bit through the team. I mean, you'd have to ask these guys how much of a step up it is from serving at a previous church. I think it is, but I think people have done it willingly, been super grateful for people carrying a lot. But it's been a real joy, I think, to do that together as a team. I don't think that's been a burden for people. You can ask them. They're sitting beside you.
Can I just quickly add on the stepping up to serve front of things? A story that I found really encouraging is one of the members of the congregation who, started coming to the plant after it started, and so she was not part of the original planting team, but God's just used the plant to just grow her faith so much, and her being more involved in Bible studies, and is now on the music serving rota, and that's just an opportunity that might not have come about if she was at a much, much bigger church. But it's been a major encouragement to see how God's worked through her, because St. Augustine is closer to her home, and so it's also giving the room for other people who might not necessarily have had the opportunity to be part of rotas to be part of rotas and serving God. And it's a joy.
Amazing. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, thanks. And great to hear from Scott. Just over 10 years ago, Scott was my youth leader.
Yes.
I was blessed by Scott then, and it's great to hear what he's up to now. And I just wanted to know a little bit more about how you took a team from CCM. What were you asking people in terms of their commitment? Were you asking them to move? Who did you take? Did you want to make sure you had a diverse group? Did you just take anyone? How did that process go?
Great question.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam. Great question. I mean, it slightly depended on the day. Some days you're sort of leading up to these plants and you're like, I will literally take anybody who, who's willing to get on a tube train and go to Wembley Park. That wasn't quite the approach. We, Christchurch Mayfair, we were aiming for 30 people as a sort of ballpark figure, slightly plucked out the air, And so there was quite a long process of beginning some prayer meetings. We had a couple of prayer walks around Wembley Park, saw the church building, beginning to gather interest. Who might be up for this. There were a few people who lived in that sort of vague area, so a few people a bit further out or further down the Jubilee line. A few people like that who were keen. Others were willing to move, so some people did move. Some couples who had just got married, sort of looking for a new place, thought, why not? Why not rent somewhere in Wembley Park? So we had a couple of couples did that. A few people have bought houses, flats nearby. My approach was to keep it fairly flexible in terms of not demanding that people all move into the parish, but to have a bit more flexibility. That sort of reflected the existing congregation. They didn't all live right there. There was some people who commuted in, so that sort of made sense. Again, Wembley Park is sort of a destination area, so people are used to sort of coming and going. So it's not so locally based that it felt like you had to live in there. So it really began by gathering a group to pray, and it genuinely was to pray. But I think out of that group of people praying, people catch a heart for Wembley Park. They catch a vision for what church in that part of town might look like, and you sort of gel together as a team and think, actually it'd be great to be a church with these people and to do that together. So yeah, trying to keep in tension the sort of flexibility. Like, people in London, they're transient, they're moving around all the time, they can't always move right into the area at that exact same time, but people who are committed to the vision of what we're trying to do. We didn't set a timeline on, we didn't say you have to sign up for this many years, or again, try to be a bit flexible with that. Whether that's worked, I think it's worked so far. I think we'll see in the years to come. How much people are able to, how much the original team are able to, people's lives change and people come and go. So yeah, I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Josephine didn't tell the story, but
yes, let's wrap on this.
The first Sunday that she rocked up at CCM was when we were sort of launching, sort of publicly, where Wembley Park is actually where we're going. And I remember Josephine walking up to me at the end of the service. I said, if you want to know more, come and chat. Be happy to chat. I'd never met Josephine before. It was the first time she was at CCM, and she came up to me, big smile on her face, and said, I think I want to join St. Augustine's. And I was like, I don't know who you are, but great. I
think I literally said, you don't know me, and this probably sounds really weird, but I want to go to the plant.
Yeah. And I thought, okay, I'll probably never see this. I'll probably never see her again. And here we are. Here we are talking about it a year later. She was good to her word.
Amazing. Praise God for that. Josephine, you did mention in the break, I want to wrap on this last one. You did mention encouragement. I was like ending on we've had a lot of high notes, but one more. Why not?
I mentioned her in this.
She subtly wove it in.
You subtly
wove it in.
Yeah. She was the one who.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah. But it's been really cool to see how she's become more involved in church because of the plant, and that the plant made that possible. And it's not only an encouragement seeing her grow, but for me as well, we've been reading the Bible one-to-one together, and I've learned a lot about the power of God's word to move hearts and to reveal truths, and working through my weakness. And that just shows it's not only all about them and it's like, oh, woo, go them, but you can actually grow through planting yourself as well in your knowledge and love of God. So that's also an encouragement to planters.
That's really encouraging. Well, guys, that ends another year of live podcasting at Revive. Thank you guys so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask these guys afterwards. We'll be hanging around for a little bit. But do check us out. If you haven't heard us before, we're live on all platforms, most of them anyway. Maybe not Deezer, I don't know. But we hope to continue to bring you good stories of godly people doing the Lord's work in London. So thank you guys so much.